And so that brings me to Gideon's promise. That was the challenge that Ilya and I were thinking about when we started this organization. And it is an organization designed not just to train lawyers on the law, not just to give them legal skills, but to build a community to help them resist those pressures to abandon the values that made them want to do this work in the first place. It's a community that gives them strategies to resist those pressures today and to be advocates to challenge the assumptions that others in the system have that lead to the injustice. At the heart of our program is a 3-year program for new lawyers that we call our Core 101 program. For 3 years, new lawyers go through a program where they receive training and mentorship and support. It starts with a 2-week boot camp where they come together to learn and to community build and to build support. And then they go back to their offices and they're given mentors, and we have an online community, and they support one another. But we also recognized, as our first classes started to graduate, that if we didn't continue to support them, the cultures they returned to would soon shape them. And so we developed a graduate program. And the graduate program was designed to groom them into the trainers and the mentors that the younger lawyers desperately needed. We developed a leadership program so we could bring the heads of their offices, the chief defenders, together every 6 months to think about how to support these lawyers. We developed a trainer development program so we could get trainers and supervisors to learn the curriculum and support what we were teaching back in the office. And we developed a law clerk program so we could bring the brightest law students from around the country to Mississippi and Georgia and Alabama and Tennessee to support these young lawyers. But all of those programs weren't only designed to support these young lawyers who were the future of criminal justice reform. They were also designed to transform the existing system. The graduate program also has an external component where we're grooming those graduates into tomorrow's leaders. The law clerk program, not only are they coming to support our lawyers during the summer, but they're starting to build avenues, channels, so they can come to the public defender offices with the greatest need. They can become part of this movement that we're building. The leaders aren't only learning how to support their lawyers in the office and change the culture in the office, but they're learning how to advocate for reform in the communities where they work. And in our trainer development program, we're not just teaching trainers to support our lawyers in our program, but they're learning how to export this model and to take it back to systems across the country. When you look at all of the offices we've touched, we have literally had a hand in helping shape indigent defense in 27 states across America. There's no question with the human resources we are developing through our programming that we could scale this model. We have scaled this model from 2 states to 27. The only limit to how far we can go is resources, but it's also important to understand that not only are we trying to scale, not only are we trying to grow our reach, it is critical that we also focus on depth. Because to change culture, you can't just touch a lawyer and send them back to a state. You've got to hold on to them. You can't touch them. You have to embrace them. You have to wrap your arms around them. You have to support them as they develop into leaders that you desperately need. So not only have we touched offices across 27 states, we actually have partnerships where we have sustained relationships with over 40 county-level offices across 16 states. We have a statewide partnership in Maryland. We have literally worked with every public defender in the state of Maryland, and we're in the process of forging statewide partnerships in Virginia and in Michigan. The impact has been tremendous. And we know that the impact has been tremendous from several sources. We know the impact has been tremendous from our own lawyers' experiences. For example, there's a young woman in Georgia named Janelle. Janelle was one of our earliest lawyers in one of our earliest classes. And she came to Georgia because, as she says, I wanted to represent people that looked like me. Janelle grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in an African-American community. She went to Spelman College and Howard Law School, both HBCUs. She became a public defender because she wanted to represent people of color. And she joined our program, and she ended up getting placed in Bartow County, Georgia, which is about 45 minutes outside of Atlanta, but it may as well be hours away. Almost all of her clients were white. She was the only African-American woman attorney in the county. She talks about how she would walk into the courtroom with her briefcase in her suit, and how long it took before the bailiff stopped asking her where her lawyer was. And one day, Janelle called me up because she was trying to grapple with a particular problem. She had a juvenile client who was going to be sentenced. And she had a statute, and she was convinced that this statute made clear that the judge couldn't detain this young man. But she said she'd been talking to senior lawyers in the county, and they said that that argument would never work. They said, don't even bring it up. The judge will laugh at you. And she called to say, what do you think? And she talked to me and several other of our mentors, and we all came to the same conclusion. Of course you have to bring it up. The statute is clear. And she steeled herself, and she walked into the courtroom, and she stood up, and she made the argument. As she made the argument, she heard snickers in the background from some of the more seasoned lawyers. And then the judge granted her motion, and the snickering stopped. But not only did Janelle disrupt a system of injustice when she did that, she began transforming that system of justice. You see, some of those lawyers who were laughing in the audience now filed that very motion. How else do we know we have impact? We recently worked with an organization called Measures for Justice under a grant from the Department of Justice to look at the outcomes that our lawyers receive. And the initial findings seemed quite positive. Measures for Justice looked at 3 of our partner offices in Tennessee, Memphis, Knoxville, and Nashville, and compared it to a test office in Chattanooga. And what the preliminary findings suggest is that our lawyers, their clients are more likely to get pretrial diversion. They're less likely to plead guilty. They've closed more cases quickly, meaning people aren't languishing in jail. That their clients are incarcerated less often. Those outputs matter. We also know because the leaders who partner with us tell us so. As a matter of fact, I get these emails all the time. Illy gets these emails all the time. Just last week, I share this one with you because it's literally the most recent. I got an email from Fielding Pringle. She's the chief public defender in Columbia, South Carolina. They joined our partnership about 3 years ago. She wrote to tell me that before they joined Gideon's Promise, they would lose somewhere between 5 to 9 lawyers a year in an office that only had 25 to 30 lawyers. But she said, since we joined Gideon's Promise, in 2014, we lost 2 lawyers. In 2015, we only lost 2 lawyers. In 2016, only 1 lawyer left our office. And she went on to say the impact of retention on the quality of representation, continuity of representation, morale, organizational structure, and overall smooth running of my office has improved dramatically as a result. I attribute this change to better hiring practices, but also and largely to the culture shift that the Gideon's Promise attorneys have brought to our office and our community. She said they're a different kind of public defender, and they infuse the attorneys around them with their spirit, their confidence, their commitment, their excitement, and their drive. They are a changing force. This matters. And so this picture, and then I'm going to wrap up with the last story. This picture is a picture of some of our lawyers at our last gathering. We get together every 6 months and bring all of our lawyers together. And a couple years ago, as the lawyers leave each other, some go back to pretty remote places with little support. And a couple years ago, one of the lawyers suggested we should end our meetings with a group hug. And he stood up and he got in the middle and he encouraged everyone to come in, and he brought in one lawyer who was feeling particularly lonely and brought her in the middle, and he hugged her, and everyone hugged around her, and it became a tradition, because what these lawyers really understand is the love and support they feel when they get together, that has to be sustained. They have to feel that when they go back to their jurisdictions. They have to feel that when they're at their lowest moment, because this battle is too important and their work is too important. If they are to stand next to clients and give them voice, if they are to infuse the system with humanity, they know they can't do it alone.